This week we have saved the best for last, that being our Prismatic Hunters. In this video, we're going to go over everything with our Prismatic Hunters, all the abilities, how they're going to work together, and make a day one campaign Prismatic Hunter build for you to be able to use during the beginning and maybe even the entire campaign to get that legend version done for those extra rewards. We have done this before with the Warlock and the Titan, so if you're curious about those, I will leave the links for those in the description. But if you want to see more builds and guides, then please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, consider liking the video as it helps the algorithm show my video to other people who might be interested, and comment down below what you are most excited about. With all that being said, let's get right into this video. First, let's look at the basics. We'll have access to all three class abilities, that being Marksman Dodge, Gambler's Dodge, and Acrobat's Dodge from our Solar subclass. We will also get all the jump options, which are High Jump, Strafe Jump, Triple Jump, and Blink from our Arc subclass. These are all going to be available from the start when we get our Prismatic subclass. Moving on to the Prismatic subclass itself, first we need to talk about Transcendence. This is new and exclusive to our Prismatic subclass. While playing on Prismatic, there'll be a new bar under your super bar that fills up when we do damage with light or dark damage types. Once filled up, you can activate Transcendence, fully recharge your abilities, and get a new grenade option. For Hunters, we get Hail Fire Spike. Throw a device charged with stasis matter and solar energy that attaches to surfaces or targets and then erupts into a slowing storm. After a short duration, the device ignites, creating a deadly scorching cyclone. This grenade is going to be very good, as long as it has a better time attaching to flat surfaces, unlike our trip mines. With this grenade, we can slow targets, potentially freeze them, then watch more targets scorch and ignite. Overload champions and unstoppable champions are going to be very weak to this grenade, as it can easily stun both champions, and honestly it can deal with barrier champions pretty easily if we can freeze them before it turns into solar, igniting them and making them explode. I think this is easily one of the top tier transcendent grenades that we get. It's going to go the Hunter one, the Titan one, and then the Warlock one. Unfortunately, I don't think the Warlock one is that crazy. I mean, it's good, don't get me wrong, I just think it's not that innovative. I don't know, I just don't really like it very much. For the actual subclass options themselves, we're going to start with our arc selection. We have the new Super Storm's Edge, which lets us throw an arc infused knife and then teleport to it, do a spinning attack, which sounds really cool, but how good it will be, we're going to find out very soon in just a few short weeks. We then have Combination Blow, the best of the arc melees for our hunters. We then have Arc Bolt grenades, which are getting a very nice buff. Then the new aspect Ascension, where we jump, twirl the staff above us, give us and allies the amplified buff. Again, it sounds really cool, but we're gonna have to see how that actually plays out in game. Next, we have our solar options. We're going to get Marksman Golden Gun, which is getting an orb nerf because people don't know how to act when it comes to using Star Eater scales. We then have Knife Trick and Swarm Grenades, which are getting a very good buff. We then get Gunpowder Gamble as our aspect, which is one of my favorite of the Solar Hunter options. We get everything here to start with except for Gunpowder Gamble. We get Golden Gun, Swarm Grenades, and Knife Trick. We'll get Gunpowder Gamble later on, and I'm really excited for that. After that, we have Stasis, which a lot of things are getting buffed in general when it comes to stasis. So starting with our Silence and Squall super, it's going to move faster and it's going to deal more damage, which is going to be really good. Withering Blade melee and our Dustfield grenades are going to be about the same, not including again the general stasis buffs across the board. And for our aspect, we have Winter's Shroud, which is now going to give us a class ability regeneration, give us some damage resistance in PvP, and it is still going to do its normal effects, giving us that little slow bubble around us when we use our class ability, which has me really excited to pair it with other things, like one of the options later on for Strand, which we're about to talk about, and then of course Acrobat's Dodge. Is that all going to stack? And all of these stasis options are going to be available at the start of our Prismatic journey. For Strand, we have our Silk Strike super and Threaded Spike melee. We then get Grapple Grenades and the Threaded Spectre aspect, which this is what I want to pair with Winter's Shroud. I want to know if I Acrobat's Dodge, is it going to make the Threaded Spectre and do the slowing field on top of that? If so, that's going to be an awesome build, and I already have the exotic in mind that I want to pair with it. Finally, we have Void, my favorite hunter subclass. We get Shadow Shot Deadfall, which is the one big tether, Snare Bomb, which will now last longer and have a DOT effect, We will then get Stylish Executioner, which makes us invisible when we defeat any target that has a debuff. For our class setup on the Day 1 Legend campaign, we're going to swap between Golden Gun and Silence and Squall, depending on if we're going against bosses or dealing with ads. I am taking Swarm Grenade for the extra ad clear and damage it will provide, plus the Scorch, then Withering Blade as it's going to bounce between targets and apply slow to all those targets. Then the only two aspects we have are Winter Shroud and Stylish Executioner. With this setup, we're going to go invisible with everything we do. Getting a defeat with our grenade. Scorch counts as a class debuff, so we're going to go invisible. We got Withering Blade, they got slowed, we are now going invisible. Acrobat's Dodge is going to give us Radiant, which is going to be huge, and overall I think this is probably one of the strongest starting builds for our Prismatic setup. Now this is all going to be amplified even further when we talk about our fragments that we're going to have available to us when we start this particular campaign. We're going to start with Facet of Dawn, where powered melee hits against targets make you radiant, and powered melee final blows make both you and nearby allies radiant. We have Facet of Hope, where when we have an elemental buff, our class ability regenerates more quickly. Facet of Protection, while surrounded by enemies, you are more resistant to incoming damage. Facet of Purpose, picking up an orb of power grants either amplified, restoration, frost armor, woven mail, or an overshield based on the damage type of your super. And Facet of Ruin, this increases the size and damage of the burst when you shatter a stasis crystal or a frozen target, and increases the size of solar ignitions. With these fragments, we can easily get that Radiant from Withering Blade bouncing between targets, which is going to give us more class ability regen from Facet of Hope. We're not going to play too close to enemies with this build, but the extra resistance from Facet of Protection is going to be really nice just in case that these encounters are really ad dense. Then we pick up an orb getting Restoration or the new Frost Armor, which by the way is really good. When they talked about it this week, for every 1 stack of Frost Armor, we get, I think it's like 4.5% damage reduction, all the way up to 5 stacks, and then 8 when we pair that with the new Whisper of Rhyme. It's going to be really good. And then, of course, Facet of Ruin is just going to make our stasis stuff really good. With Silence and Squall freezing things and shattering things, that's going to be increased in both size and damage. And overall, again, with these fragments, I think that the Hunter Prismatic subclass on Day 1 at least is going to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest. And again, we can take that even further with the few exotics that we can pair with this setup before we get our new class item. One of which is Celestial Nighthawk. This is obviously just really good for Golden Gun and Star Eater scales for the same reason before our Silence and Squall, since Nighthawk is getting that nerf. We then have a wild card, that being Gerfalcons. This is because we're going to be going invisible from every single thing we do. So the extra volatile is going to be really nice, as long as the invisibility from Stylish Executioner still counts as void invisibility. And then we have the Bombardiers. This is the exotic that I want to pair with my Acrobat's Dodge, Winter Shroud, Threaded Spectre, whatever you want to call it build, and this is going to be a lot of fun. Now granted, we aren't going to be able to use Threaded Spectre until later on in the campaign. We don't exactly know when, but when we do, this is going to be one of the first things I try because it just sounds like so much fun. Just Acrobat's Dodge, give yourself Radiant, slow enemies around you, drop a Threaded Spectre, and then drop a bomb at the same time. That's going to make Threadlings. It's going to be an amazing time, and it's one of the very few builds that I truly cannot wait to try. With that though, that is the end of this video. I apologize if this video sounds weird. Literally, I sat down to record, it was quiet, and then everything started going crazy. Cars, planes, and then for some reason my microphone is picking up the AC of my neighbor downstairs, so it's crazy. So if the video sounds weird, it's probably because I had to do a little bit of post editing to edit out all that noise background, so I do apologize for that. But Prismatic Hunter to me is going to be perfect. It is going to be the best of the 3 subclasses at launch. Now, post-launch, when we actually get into the campaign and we get past the campaign, I'm not really sure what's going to be the best. I think they're all on roughly equal footing, depending on how the class exotics will pair with them, the cool little things that we can do with that. So only time is going to tell with how everything is going to be. So again, please consider subscribing, turning on your notifications, liking the video so the algorithm can bless me and have other people see this video. And again, comment what you're most excited about, and I will see you guys in the next video.